My name is Ramsey Kennedy III. I was born and raised right here in Shreveport. like my father before me, am an attorney in the great state of Louisiana. I studied at Harvard Law from 1994 to 1998 and graduated with my Juris Doctorate. I took some time for myself upon graduation, but finally settled in at a private firm in 2001, and I've been there ever since. I first began proctoring the bar exam in 2008. They were trying to figure out the transition to computers from pencil and paper testing and needed more hands on deck. I started helping and never really stopped. By the time I first met Frankie in the summer of 2019, I had moved up and started coordinating the proctors. I first noticed Mr. Williams because he seemed so young. In the sea of 300 exhausted faces, all these students here to take their exams, he was shiny and fresh, like he hadn't been broken in by years of education in preparation for this one test. He wasn't drawing any attention to himself necessarily, but his baby face just caught my eye. He was real cordial and respectful. He was a little social butterfly, but wasn't over the top. He never spoke out of line, never asked questions during either day of the exam. We took his picture and his fingerprint as identification and never really thought twice about him. He seemed to have no flaws. His demeanor was cool and collected. I hadn't thought about him again until we ended up in court together. We were working the same case, and we were in for bond and arraignment. This boy was making an absolute fool of himself. He really had no idea what he was doing. The things he was saying sounded like they came straight out of a script from some courtroom drama. While he was over the top, he was also rigid and sweaty and nervous, but he kept playing off everything like it was exactly what he meant to do. I decided to reach out to him, maybe calm his nerves a little. I had heard from a friend that Mr. Williams was a Harvard grad like myself, so I was going to reach out and make some small talk. I started cracking jokes about this kooky old professor, Dr. Dunn. He was infamous, and he was difficult, and everyone who attended ended up in at least one of his classes. I told Frankie that the judge's hair reminded me of old Dr. Dunn's toupee and tried to laugh a little. He laughed a bit, but I could see that the light bulb wasn't going off. I was a little shocked, so I pushed. Everyone should know about Dr. Dunn. I said, crazy old Dunn? And all of a sudden, he acted like he knew who I was talking about. But again, I could see that it wasn't really clicking. So I tested him. I asked him about Dr. Beckett and her dogs. There was no Dr. Beckett. She had no dogs, but I wanted to see what he'd say. And I knew he was lying when he said that her little brown dog was his favorite. Again, I made it all up. The hearing continued, and Mr. Williams seemed even more uneasy, like he knew he'd been exposed. So eventually, he excused himself and just never came back. We were dismissed, and Frankie was nowhere to be found. But now that his flaws were exposed, I decided to reach out to Agent Logan. I told him I thought I had found a man posing as a lawyer. Agent Logan brought in an investigators, and they took evidence from the courtroom. From there, it was out of my hands. I had no idea who I had found, but at this point, it just seemed beyond me.